Orcus is getting broken down like some long division, and I am here for it. And like the title and the thumbnail indicates, it's our X-Ladies doing the beatdown today. My name is Dorian, this is SCM Comics, and we are continuing our coverage of the Fall of the House of X with X-Men number 32. So our story starts off on the Magik Islands, which is right next to the Krakoan Islands. And there's a lighthouse with a lighthouse keeper, and he's just sitting back watching TV when an Orcus agent literally kicks in his door. Now, the reason why the Orcus agent is here is because besides the Kingpin, he is the only other survivor, human-wise, of the mutant massacre. You see, him and Jumbo Carnation, they had a thing going on. And since Orcus is going to hell in a handbasket, they're trying to tie up whatever loose ends that's still out there, and he is one of them. So the Orcus agent is like, I'm glad you didn't try to go into hiding. Any lesser man would have after the massacre. And he goes, why would I do that? Besides, I'm not the only one who survived, you bastards. And all of a sudden, we see Lockheed from behind his chair come out of nowhere. The Orcus agent's like, tell him to stay back. And Lighthouse Keeper's like, you think he listens to me? He hasn't listened to me since he showed up at my door. And Lockheed does what a dragon does. Flies at him and sets fire to his face. I'll say it again, to his face. These Orcus agents are catching them in all kinds of bad ways lately. And trust me, in this book, he ain't gonna be the last one. So now that the Orcus agent's a crispy critter, the Lighthouse Keeper goes, nice to see you feeling better. Now, you gonna start paying rent, or are you gonna go off to war? And then that's when Emma starts to cynically talk to everybody. And all she's doing is giving everybody a quick update on what's going on in the war. She explains how the Bloom really isn't functional anymore. And that's because of Polaris, and Wolverine, and Colossus, and Nightcrawler. And a big shout out to the Brood, those man-eaters, whew, made the job a hell of a lot easier. She also explains how her husband, Tony Stark, has built a huge Iron Man Sentinel Buster armor and is out in Australia, and he's pretty much taking out all the Sentinels. I mean, like, this thing is like 10 times bigger than your normal Sentinels, and we know how big those Sentinels are. And then she pretty much tells everybody to just keep on resisting. So then she pulls up on these Orcus agents that's harassing some mutants, and they're trying to call for a Stark Sentinel, which they're gonna be waiting a while. And she rolls down the window and goes, excuse me, piglets. Man, we're going there, huh? And they turn around and they're like, who the hell is this broad? Now, for you youngsters out there, that's what they used to call females back in the day. Like your grandpa probably used that term. It's not as bad as the B word or the H word, but you know, it's right underneath it. But it's not that bad. That's why they didn't blur it out. And then they recognize her as one of the telepathic mutants on the X-Men. And I was like, I'm glad we got our psychic dappers on. And then she hits them with these like glowing brass knuckles that I think she got from her husband. And it liquefied them. Like, man, I gotta start reading Iron Man. Like we're gonna get caught up on all this stuff eventually. It's just too much to cover at one time. And, you know, I got a job, work at a factory. So, you know, I ain't got all the time to make all the videos, but yeah, we're definitely gonna get caught by Iron Man sooner or later. So then she goes, welcome to Resistance, darlings. And then I guess there was a third one that nobody saw, and the kids start just using their powers on him. He's like, hey, can we talk about this? And they're like, no, let's not. So then we cut to the Reverend Stryker Education Center for Disadvantaged Youths in Hershey, Pennsylvania. Man, Friends of Humanity, anyone? And we have Illyana Rasputin, or better known as Magik, and she's sliding down, I think this power line, could be a zip line, but looks like a power line using her sword. And she don't look too hot if you see her face right there. And if you're wondering, like I was wondering when I was reading this, is why is she using her teleportation powers? And that's because Orcus hit her with some nanites that pretty much cancels that out. See, they did that during the whole Hellfire Gala, which was back in the summertime, so at the time of recording, we're heading into springtime, so that was a long time ago. I forgot all about that. But the nanites aren't just canceling out her mutant ability, but it's also slowly killing her. That's why she's moving the way she's moving. You know, barely taking out these organizations, but she's still taking them out. And even Emma's like, oh, why don't you like go ahead and chill out for a second and I'll send some help. And I was like, nah, I'm going to get right or I'm gonna die trying. So as she's going through the hole in the wall that she just cut out, she goes and she trips and falls. She accidentally cuts one of the organization's guns, and then another one shoots at her. She blocks it, and she's explaining how there were rules on Krakoa that they followed. One rule was kill no human, and she followed that rule to a T. But since there's nobody on the Quiet Council here to enforce those rules, even though one of them's in her head right now. And she throws her sword, stabs his Orchis agent, picks up his gun, says, I really don't like using guns, but I'm a pretty good shot, and starts taking out all the other Orchis agents. As she pistol whips the last Orchis agent, you could tell she is tired as hell. And then she walks into this laboratory and is like getting rid of evidence, and he's like, yeah, and you should too. You should start burning everything. There's going to be trials. And he turns around and realizes that it was Illyana and not just a regular Orchis person. So he goes, whoops, hi, Miss Mutant. And she goes, don't even think about going for the gun. And he goes, well, we're all in the same boat now. And he goes, things would have turned out differently if humans were in charge of Orchis instead of our AI partners, who we definitely couldn't trust. So somehow, some way, she knows that this is the lead scientist that was in charge that put the nanites in her, and she pretty much is here to tell him to take the nanites out of her. So he's like, to be honest, I'm surprised you're still alive. And she goes, the nanites prevent me from using my teleportation gifts. And he goes, and now they're replicating so much that they'll soon kill you. So she goes, I want them out. And he's like, and I want to date Taylor Swift. And I wish I picked the right side to this war, but we always don't get what we want. As he picks up the gun and goes, I'll make it quick. And then he goes, oh shit. As Kate Pryde phases through the wall, knocks the gun away. So the Magik goes, Kitty, is that really you? As she starts to faint, Kate catches her, kicks the scientist at the same time and goes, yes, it's me. And they both go, I thought you were dead. And then Kate goes, Jinx. You see, these two go way back, like late 80s, early 90s back. So the Magik thinks that Shadowcat is the help that Emma was talking about. And Shadowcat's like, nah, I was already here, actually. I was working on liberating these mutants in here when I heard the commotion, pretty much heard you killing everybody. So I decided to go ahead and eavesdrop. So then Kate's like, it's okay. I can take it from here. You can go ahead and rest now. And Illyana's like, no. If I'm going out swinging my sword. And all of a sudden, all we see is them in like this Orchis control room, and it is a bloodbath between these two. So they literally just start shooting as there is blood everywhere in this room. Illyana's asking about Colossus, is he alive? Kate's like, yeah, he's with Wolverine, and so on and so forth. And then she's like, well, I don't think I'm going to make it out of here. And then Kate's like, no, Emma sent a doctor. She's like, a doctor? And all of a sudden the roof comes off the building. And we see that it is Polaris. She is slowly starting to become one of my favorites, I'm not gonna lie. And she is rocking a coffee. I'm assuming it's not the same coffee she had on the Bloom, because she said, Orchis coffees. So I'm assuming before she headed to Hershey that she went to Starbucks and got her something. I said a caramel macchiato. Speaking of which, what is your favorite drink from Starbucks? See if you even drink Starbucks coffee. Me, I'm either a caramel frappuccino guy or I'm a caramel cold brew guy. I gotta thank for caramel. So she goes, I could taste the iron in the air. Good work, ladies. So she throws a coffee cup and she's like, I can feel the machines inside of you. I think I can remove them, but it's gonna hurt like hell. Maybe we should get one of the telepaths. And then Magik goes, I want them. And she just screams out. And Blair's like, okay. And she goes, on 3, 1, 3. And Illyana just starts screaming. So then she starts pulling the nanites and it looks like it's coming through her eyes. And Blair's like, I'm sorry. I don't know why I thought jumping the gun would help with the pain. But she's like, I got him. And then she falls down and then Kitty's like, I got her. And then Blair's is like, just to let you know, incoming, there's tons of steel behind me. And then we see a Stark Sentinel just staring at him. So then the Stark Sentinel recognizes Polaris and goes putting in countermeasures for magnetic manipulation. So then Polaris is pretty much like, well, this sucks. The best thing I could do now is just put up a force field. So then Polaris is pretty much like, it's gonna be up to you two to pretty much take this thing out. And then Kate's like, keep it looking at you. Polaris is like, that's why I put on makeup. And then Magik, now where the powers restored, is going to go help too. So Magik, using her powers, takes her and Polaris and falls right on top of the Sentinel's head. And Polaris is like, so how'd you survive the gala? So Magik's like, the gate that I went through fizzled out. And you? So Polaris is like, I left the gala early. I was depressed, still grieving about my father. Talking about Magneto. So then she's like, I've been feeling guilty. If I'd have stayed, and Magik's like, same, but there's no use of beating yourself up. If you'd have stayed, you'd be dead too. So then Kitty's like, great therapy session, guys, but I could use a little help down here. So then Polaris grabs some power lines using her powers and goes, to me, my power lines. She definitely likes using that to me. She did the same thing in Fall of the House of X #2. To me, my brood. and she sticks him right in the hole that Magik made with her sword. So then the Sentinel starts to shake, and then Kate's like, let's not take any chances, and she phases a hole into the fire hydrant, and then Magik uses her power and sends the water right down onto the Sentinel, and he just explodes. So then we see all the mutants that were in that facility have been released, and then Emma shows up and she goes, hey guys, great job. Kate, got a surprise for you. And we see is Loki. They haven't been around him for a long time as they both hug him. So then Polaris is like, on to the next one. Nimrod, where is he? And then Emma's like, I think we got a hit on him. And then Cyclops starts to talk to him psychically and is like, I actually got some real good information on Nimrod. But then he starts to explain how Dr. Karen, all right, I'll be nice, Dr. Gregor has pretty much flipped sides, jumped ships, and now is on the mutant side because, you know, the androids pretty much double-crossed him. And then he asks if Magik can meet him there. Emma's like, oh no, she has been through some stuff. She's kind of tired. And Magik's like, no, I am a war captain of Krakoa. I am on my way. Things are starting to get really good here because in the next issue, it's time to chase down Dr. DeVoe.